Hi, my name's Anna Serin. I'm Director of Listings Development with the Canadian Securities Exchange, and you are joining us for another week of Market Recap. I'm joined by my co-host, Bruce Campbell with StoneCastle Investment Management. Thank you for joining me, Bruce.
Yeah, nice to be here.
Nice to see you. It's gorgeous here in Vancouver. Is it gorgeous in Kelowna?
It is, yeah, it's awesome. Can't wait for the weekend.
It's about time. Okay, we're going to talk about a few different things this week, although it seems like themes just keep following us all the way through. I did look at our playlist and we are on week 14, I believe. So good for us for sticking around. We'd love to hear from any viewers. If there's stuff that you want to hear about, make sure that you email us and let us know. All of our information can be found on our websites. We're going to talk about inflation. There was an inflation sell-off. Canadian dollar hit another all-time high. We're going to talk about Bitcoin and Elon Musk. He's up to more shenanigans. We're going to talk about that. Again, more movement in the cannabis space. Every week, it seems to be bigger and bigger. There was the largest merger, I think, that's happened in the cannabis space so far. We're going to talk about that. There was a new listing on the CSC and a very special advisor. So we're going to talk about that, as well as another big special advisor that joined one of our esports companies. So the CSC is getting some big noticing from big advisors. So we're going to talk about all the special people that are joining us. Let's start talking about inflation again. Bruce, what's going on?
Yeah, we obviously saw a very volatile week this week, and it was kind of blamed on inflation and the rise in inflation. And now, everyone's concerned again about, will interest rates have to go up, and what's going to happen with the Fed and tapering. We kind of look at this in a couple of different ways. First off is, sentiment had been pushed really to an extreme here. We saw it on a number of different tools that we use, a number of different guidelines and guideposts. And so it's kind of not surprising that we saw this sell-off, right? And I mean, anytime there's a sell-off, the media in particular likes to try to figure out why was that sell-off and what was the reason behind it. And I mean, what's been blamed is really inflation here. And we've certainly seen inflation, especially from the commodities. If you look at lumber, if you look at some of the soft commodities, they've all gone up. And now the market's starting to become concerned about those. That being said, we really haven't started to see much from a labor statistic standpoint yet for inflation, and so typically that's the best gauge. But there are a number of places that are having trouble finding workers, so maybe that's the next thing that comes along. Obviously, the last couple of days here, the market's kind of cooled down and resumed a little bit more normalcy, which I guess in this case is up. Maybe if you're short, that's not normal, but in our case, where we're mostly long, that is normal for us.
So I'm going to ask you a bit of a funny question. You know how they say there's no stupid questions? I might have one. If the cost of the commodity goes up, isn't that better for the markets because perhaps the margins are better?
Yeah, it's one of those things, it's obviously great for the producer. So, if you're a lumber company and, where you thought $500 lumber was expensive before and now it's, $1,400, like obviously, your input costs haven't gone up that much. So yeah, your profitability is going up. And if you saw this week, Interfor announced a $2 special dividend because they're generating so much cash. But the market looks at it, kind of in two different ways. First off, they're like, oh wow, like these companies are making so much money. And then they go, whoa, hold on here. The endless stimulus that we've been seeing from the federal banks around the world, and in particular the Federal Reserve in the US, wow, that could maybe stop here because inflation's starting to heat up and they don't want the economy to get too strong and we end up back in a situation like we were in the 80s. So then all of a sudden it puts a different hat on and says, oh, we're not looking at what's happening with the numbers today, but we're looking at what could happen with the numbers a year from now or 2 years from now. And then everyone starts to, panic, and then, sort of the crazy sets in.
And the crazy sets in. That has happened before. Okay, speaking of inflation, it affected the Canadian dollar this week. What happened?
Yeah, I mean, obviously with commodities being so strong, the Canadian dollar keeps getting bid up as, I would suspect both, US dollars are repatriated back into Canada, so dollars are being bought. And then we've also seen a fairly significant flow of foreign investment into Canada, into Canadian stocks. And so as a result, you're seeing those wanting to buy Canadian stocks and Canadian dollars, and it's pushed the dollar up. So we haven't seen this level in the dollar for a while. that being said, it is very overextended from a technical standpoint. And so, we kind of are looking at it and saying, we certainly wouldn't be surprised if you saw a bit of a counter trend move there, although we think the longer term still is that the Canadian dollar continues to strengthen, because we think we're in a, sort of extended period of commodity cycle here.
What does when this happens to the Canadian dollar and you see this increase, which doesn't happen very often, by the way, that it's at the highest it's been in 6 years. So this isn't something that happens very often. Does this change your investment thesis? Does it change anything within the varying funds that you have and manage?
Not a lot, but what it does impact is especially when the rate of change is happening faster than it has in the past, we have to make an assessment then of whether or not that rate of change could potentially continue on in the future. Because if it does, and we have US dollar positions, then we have to be careful how we manage those positions, because we can make money on the underlying security, but lose money on the currency conversion, which we don't want to do. So we have to figure out whether or not we hedge or how we get that back into Canadian dollars.
Well, for me, I personally feel sad that our borders are closed. I can't go and enjoy, the currency conversion, go down to the States and have some fun. So that's too bad, but hopefully soon, hopefully. Okay, let's talk about Bitcoin. Okay, so first of all, I have to start off this story about Bitcoin because I don't know about you, but I actually watched Elon Musk on Saturday Night Live. Did you watch it?
I didn't watch it live. I've just seen sort of bits on the internet.
Okay, well, first of all, he was kind of oddly charming in it, so I actually quite enjoyed it. Him and Miley Cyrus, what a combo pair for Saturday Night Live. Good for them. I hope that they do more of that because it was pretty neat. But okay, so this is what happened this week. I'm going to break down what happened, then you're going to tell me what you think about this. So on Wednesday, he announces. First of all, on Saturday Night Live, he made a joke about Dogecoin. Is it Dogecoin? Dogecoin. He made a joke about it and said it was a bit of a hustle, and it took a big dive after that. People really kind of responded to that little nuanced joke he made. On Wednesday, he announced that Tesla will no longer accept Bitcoin as payment. So just to remind all of you viewers out there, 3 months ago, it was only 3 months ago, he announced that Tesla would accept Bitcoin as payment to purchase a Tesla. In coordination with this, he had to obviously build his own reserve. He bought 1.5 billion Bitcoins. At that time, and I couldn't see exactly the price, but the price soared for Bitcoin at the time that he announced that. And there was some hefty gains made for Tesla at that time. Last week or the week before, you and I were talking about Tesla yet again. Their earnings came out, and what you mentioned was that there was something very interesting about their earnings, which was the credits that they received. So a lot of the earnings had to do with the Bitcoin that they had, as well as earning credit or the credits on their accounting. Now, those credits, interestingly enough, are credits that they sell to other companies for their carbon footprint, because they obviously don't create much carbon footprint. So they're actually making money on selling these credits to other companies. Now comes this week, and they've announced that they're no longer accepting Bitcoin. And the reason for this is environmental concerns, because, and I don't know if many people know this, but it is, there is a lot of energy used. There's an incredible amount of energy used to mine for Bitcoin. And so out of environmental concerns, they've decided to stop this. Now, this isn't brand new information. This information was very much available at the time that he decided to do this. 3 months later, now he's not. In the meantime, just to add to that, so Bitcoin went down when he said that. In the meantime, on Thursday, he came out, and all cryptocurrencies were affected by that. He came out Thursday and said, you know what? We're going to help out Dogecoin. We're going to give them a hand the next 6 to 8 weeks and help them out. Okay, so then, of course, Dogecoin goes way up. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Okay, tell me what you think about this story, because to me, it's a little nuts, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think he's trying to position himself to make a big gain, so he had a Bitcoin position, and it was, I think you said 1 billion coins, but it would be dollars, because there's only 18.7 million coins that are out there right now, just for clarification.
$1.5 billion of Bitcoin.
Right. So he bought that position. Obviously, Bitcoin's gone way up. And then, let's assume that he sold that position. He then goes out and says, oh yeah, we're out of Bitcoin because, it uses up too much electricity and its carbon footprint is horrible. And so now it drops. Maybe he bought it back. Like that's, I'm always questioning whether or not, because I mean, he's done other things like that in the past with Tesla stock to, what most people consider to be manipulate the market, and, sort of stuck his thumb up to, or his nose up to, the SEC in a lot of ways. So, and with, Bitcoin being a little more unregulated, I certainly wouldn't be surprised if, he's trading big positions around this to make profit. It certainly would make sense.
Well, and I mean, it's kind of nuts. The regulators must be going crazy, and you don't want to mess around with the SEC. Those, those guys are those are big dudes. You don't want to mess around with them. They must be knocking at his door. But I think he bought it. It was somewhere in the 40,000s. It hit an all-time high of 79,000, I think, at some point. And of course, the sell-off went back down to 59. So he could totally be doing that. But you just gotta. And I guess because it's cryptocurrency. I don't know how much the SEC is involved, but what they can manage is what he's saying as a public company and the moves within Tesla. But I mean, Bruce, to me, this is so weird because he must have known the energy consumption of Bitcoin when he decided to buy it. I mean, is he just being that brazen?
There's certainly a lot of people on the street that think that. And I mean, I would fall into that camp for sure. He will have had to have known how much energy consumption there is to mine Bitcoin. So, I think there's something more behind that, but obviously we'll find out over time when, he comes back and says, oh, actually I was wrong. Like it's actually better than I thought. And we are accepting Bitcoin again.
So the other thing is, what was the other thing because I wanted to ask you this, oh shoot, I think it's gone and we're live. So we're going to move along. I'll ask you. Oh, I know what I wanted to ask you. Now, what about the credits? Because we talked about the revenue from these credits a few weeks ago. And when I looked further into it and saw that these credits actually had to do with the carbon footprint, do you think it could have anything to do with that?
I mean, I guess it's possible, for sure. I mean, obviously, maybe he's concerned about that. We know those are going to go away anyways, so over time. But certainly, that could have been part of it.
Interesting. Well, he keeps us entertained even on Saturday Night Live apparently now. So
he was way more entertaining than Wayne Gretzky, that's for sure.
Oh, I never saw Wayne Gretzky.
Oh yeah, look it up live. It's great.
I thought he did a decent job. So anyway, man of many talents. He also did an interesting podcast with Joe Rogan. It's quite a long one, but I found it quite interesting for anyone more interested in learning about Elon. Okay, let's talk about cannabis. We got to talk about it. Cannabis. Let's talk about, there was some earnings reported with MSOs, multi-state operators down in the US. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, we've seen this week, we saw actually quite a bit of earnings on both sides of the border in the US. And we've seen, really contrasting cannabis markets. So in the US, we saw, some fairly big people come out. So Harvest came out, Trulieve came out, GTI came out, and all their numbers were fantastic. Obviously growing their revenue, growing their EBITDA, which is fantastic to see. And in some cases, they even have earnings. So, which is unbelievable. In Canada, we see sort of the tail of the other end where, the numbers are disappointing, they decline, and they're continuing to burn through cash and have, huge unfunded issues, and then also have huge inventory issues. And we've seen companies come out and announce that they're going to be doing more of these at the market stock sales to try to raise cash. So it's really right now we're seeing a huge disparity between Canada and the US and how on aggregate they're performing. Certainly there's going to be individual companies on both sides that perform differently than that, but on aggregate that's certainly been the case.
Well, and here's the thing, and I turn to you to give me your guidance on this. When this sector really did start coming to the capital markets, and let's be very clear, this sector has been around a very long time. When it started coming to the capital markets as an investor, so you manage a fund that is focused on the cannabis space. As an investor, there is speculation, and some of the investments decisions that you make is speculation on where it could go. But we've now grown enough as a sector that I think really, I would hope investors just look at the financials. I mean, look at, their costs versus their revenues versus their, their management team and how long they've had in this industry and what they've, execute in their business plan. Wouldn't you say that it's become a little bit more of a, just kind of take a look at the fundamentals of a company?
Yeah, it certainly has. It's really kind of grown up, right? Years ago we looked at cultivation capacity and licenses, and now, we're looking at earnings growth rates and costs and, the ability to generate real hard dollar earnings versus, just revenue growth. So yeah, it's certainly been the case. And I mean, when you look at it from that perspective, there's pockets and small niches of Canadian companies that have done well. But, compared to what we're seeing in the US, the profitability has been a lot stronger, which you would expect from a pure numbers standpoint. But even on a percentage basis, you're not seeing the same type of number follow through in Canada that you are in the US.
Yeah, I mean, some of these guys in the US, their businesses are unbelievable. Speaking of US, unbelievable cannabis companies, we saw the largest merger that's happened in the cannabis sector within the capital markets, and that is Trulieve and Harvest merged. What do you think of this? I mean, this was a massive, massive merger. I think it was, it was all in stock, and it's estimated at being over 2 billion. 2.1 billion or is the valuation of the merger. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a huge deal. It's something that we've said for a while that we thought would be a trend, that there would be more consolidation in the sector. And in this case, it makes a lot of sense. Trulieve, while they've stepped outside of Florida, hadn't really done it in such a big way. They obviously completely dominate Florida, and they have a few other operations on the east side. Well, now with the merger with Harvest, they've have a bit of a move into the West Coast as well. So we talk about multi-state operators. A lot of the existing multi-state operators really are east of the Mississippi, and now Trulieve's showing hey, we have the ability to step outside and be across the US. So when legalization comes, we will be a global or a US national company. And then if you look at something like what Curaleaf did into Europe, they're looking at beyond the borders of the US as well. So you can see these companies are really driving their growth and driving the future growth on M&A and expansion.
Well, from what I could tell, the markets reacted well to it. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it was viewed quite favorably. I mean, it diversifies Trulieve, and it's really that 1 + 1 = 3 versus 2.
Crazy. Okay, so we're going to touch on psychedelics. We had a new listing that came this week with Sana Health. I really like this company. It's quite neat, but we had a special guest star at our market open, which you can check out at CCTV. So we had the new listing with Sana Health. One of the co-founders is Daniel Carcillo, sorry. And he is a retired NHL player. He suffered traumatic brain injury. I think he suffered in his career, which was only about 9 seasons, 7 concussions, and everything that he had to go through after those concussions. So he started looking into changing his lifestyle to try and manage these concussions, and that was diet and health and everything that he could do. And one of those was implementing psilocybin, which is the product that comes the product that comes from mushrooms. So psilocybin comes from that. So he played around with that. Anyway, so he co-founded Wasana Health. So welcome to the CSC. Thank you so much. They just announced that they started a partnership with the World Boxing Council, which is a pretty big deal. And obviously concussions are something that would go around there and all of its participants. And one of their big investors and special advisors is actually Mike Tyson. And he showed up on our market open. So make sure you go check it out. Mike Tyson is there. Some big names that are joining us. Do you think that we haven't talked about psychedelics in a little while, Bruce. What do you think about the psychedelic space? Because obviously you were one of the first guys who built a fund in the cannabis side of the sector when things were really getting going. What do you think about the psychedelic space?
Yeah, I mean, we have kind of different views on the psychedelic space than we did on the cannabis space. In that, cannabis is really a global recreational drug. Obviously, there's a medical um, aspect to it, and we feel there's going to be a pharmaceutical aspect to it down the road. And with the psilocybin market, there's a recreational market, but it's tiny compared to what the cannabis market would be worldwide. But the pharmaceutical market is where the huge opportunity is, in that you take these compounds like the psilocybin, and they're discovering all different types of treatments that these can be used for, and it's just a function now of really doing the trials and pulling the specific compounds and putting them into a pharmaceutical grade product. So it's not going to be consumed in a mushroom fashion. It's going to be consumed in a pill fashion that you get a prescription from your doctor for. And I think there's going to be a lot of progress in mental health, and also in the area of concussions and brain health. If that's at concussions is at Alzheimer's, it really is going to be a number of different areas. And so we're quite interested. We haven't done a lot of investing in the sector yet, just because there tends to be fairly long lead times between when you have a product and when it comes to market, because of all the approvals through the health regulatory bodies. And then obviously with that, it's very expensive and it requires money. And that's why these companies are listed publicly. But, we're certainly sifting through them, trying to figure out, who has a lead and who doesn't, and who has a higher probability of having that pharmaceutical grade product than the others. And we think that it's going to be, a real interesting space to watch over the next, probably 5 years.
Well, you know what I love about these emerging sectors coming to the capital markets is exactly that. They get funded with capital, and that's really what these companies need to be able to progress. The work that they can do. I mean, the CSE held an investing in psychedelics seminar that started last year, and then we've done one since then. And what I've been able to learn all the way along, because I didn't know much about it before, is some of the amazing stuff that it can do for severe post-traumatic stress disorders, severe depression, suicidal tendencies, and so on. So I'm really excited to see some capital flow to this, because I think there's some really amazing work that can be done. And I'm a big believer in, kind of getting people off maybe the opioids that have been, handed out in droves by pharmaceutical companies. Maybe we can move to something more efficient and more natural for people to absorb. So I wish them all the best, and welcome, to those big names to join us. There is another big name this week that is joining us, Bruce. We have an esports focused company called GameSquare, and they announced this week that the legendary Tony Hawk is coming on as a special advisor. That's pretty neat, isn't it?
It sure is. Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's anyone bigger than him. Although if you follow his Twitter, it's quite interesting, because I guess, in the last probably 8 or 9 months, I think it was, somebody came up to him and said, you look just like Tony Hawk. And he sort of has these funny stories about people coming up to him saying, you look just like Tony Hawk. So as big as he is, there's people who don't still really know that it's Tony Hawk.
Yeah, right. Well, and I mean, he's done lots of philanthropy. Oh, I can't speak today. I've lost my words, Bruce. He's done lots of charity work. I'll keep it easy on myself. He has donated millions and millions and millions of dollars to opening skate parks. I think it was over 600 skate parks across the country, wow. In areas where, maybe kids don't have anything to do. And this really creates a sense of community, and it gets kids out there and it gets them active. He's done some amazing work, and he's a pretty neat guy. So we're excited to have him on board with us on one of our CSE issuers. So good luck, GameSquare. Well done. Anything to think about going into next week, Bruce?
Well, I mean, it's been a common theme the last few weeks. I've talked about it, multiple times now, but, this commodity move and how real it is. And one of the things that we're seeing is, we haven't seen the precious metal stocks follow a lot of the move that some of the base metals and the soft commodities have made. And now we're really starting to see en masse that happening. And at the same time, we're seeing the commodity price really accelerate. So that's continues to be an area of focus for us right now, is looking at these precious metals.
Awesome. Well, listen, I also just have to mention one more time, we are still in the Cannabis Investor Series. We just completed week 2. It was cannabis culture and the capital markets. It was an amazing week. Next Tuesday, we will be doing cannabis health and wellness. We have some pretty big names joining us. We're doing one segment is going to be on, professional athletes. So speaking about all these athletes, we have Ross Bagliati joining us, an Olympic gold winner for snowboarding, as well as Elias Theodorou, who is an MMA fighter, and many, many more big names. So please make sure that you join us. Go to our website, and that'll help you register for Tuesday's event. If you go to CSC TV and you hit the subscribe button, we will let you know when content's coming out. So make sure that you do that. And after next week, we have one more week. It'll be cannabis in the global market. So stay tuned. We have 2 more great weeks. All the stuff will be found on CSC TV if you miss it. Thank you again, Bruce. Have a wonderful weekend. It's supposed to be sunny all weekend, so I hope you enjoy.
Yeah, get outside, enjoy the sun.
I will. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.